Good morning. Good morning, friends. Welcome to Essential Ingredients with me, Justine. I'm so excited to be here today. It's a really fun episode we're going to have. And this one's focused on summer, on moms, on food, and making sure that in these fun times when we're footloose and fancy free and our kids are running around, that we still make sure to include in there the good food, the fun food. So today with me, I have Shirin and I have Daniela. Shirin is a mom. She's a former physical therapist, and she had her own health issues that really led her to be mindful about the food that she serves in her house to herself and to her family. And she's made food one of her love languages and likes to incorporate healthy, better for you foods with her kids and make sure to include that in their value system. Daniela as well has made food part of her life. She has a company called Farmhouse Lab, and she makes amazing dressings and different salts, all with really good ingredients. But the question is, how does this translate to your kids, to her kids, and supporting better for you food and a healthy lifestyle? You're not going to want to miss this episode because we're going to talk about that there. We're going to talk about family values and the role that food plays. We're going to talk about bringing your kids into the kitchen and how to make sure that there's a balance. So please stay with us. You're not going to want to miss this. It's all about the conversation of what role does food play in the impact of our future health, lifestyle, beauty, fashion, all these things, right? And the planet. And I'm wondering from you guys how you thread that through your lives to build a more sustainable life for you and your children. Maybe Shirin, you want to kick it off. Tell us what you think.
For my background, so I grew up till I was 14 in Iran. So I grew up in a household where you just cook together. Cooking was a way of connecting for us. Culturally, food is a language of love and poetry and respect for nature and all of that. So I wanted to, for my kids, I wanted to bring that in. And we grew up in a way where we used everything that was in the household. It's all about zero, nothing goes to waste, And I can give you little examples of that. Would be like, if we have leftover rice, we turn it into tahdig. What is tahdig? It's a crispy rice under the bottom of the pot. It's delicious and it doesn't go to waste. If you have leftover meat, you turn into cutlet. What is cutlet? You grind the meat and with potato make patties, delicious. You have leftover herbs, you turn it into Persian frittata. So and anything we have, you have things. I make tons of different remedies, teas, like anything left over. We get creative. It's a joy. It's a celebration, and I ask my kids to participate. So that's something in our household. It's more of a celebration than a chore.
It sounds amazing, Shirin. I want to join your family. I mean, I love even just for information and education all of it just inspires me. You have a little bit of rice, fry it up in a pan. If you have meat, put it with potatoes.
Yeah. So first of all, like the entire beginning of what Shirin shared, I couldn't agree more. 100%, like the same, very similar way in how I grew up. So I'm from Germany originally, born and raised, and moved here to the United States when I was 29. So everything I learned about cooking, the way I grew up with food, happened in Germany. And both my parents were working full time, but they were lucky. My grandmother was living next door, so she would cook for my sister and myself, and for my parents too when they came back from work. And we learned a lot from her. And I think it's important to mention also that she, of course, lived through Second World War, and my parents were the generation after this experience. So I feel like both generations learned to cook with very minimal produce. And the simplicity was something I always learned from my family and grew up with. The fact that you do not need fancy food. You do not need a huge variety of food. You can have some potatoes and you can have one vegetable, and you make like a brothy buttery sauce with the vegetables and you pour it over the freshly cooked potatoes. It can be so comforting and nourishing and freshly cooked by a grandmother, served and eaten with your family. So simplicity, I think, is something that is important for us to understand. It doesn't need to be like 3 or 5 different ingredients with special sauces, although I find them very interesting. The simplicity is
Interesting.
helpful.
I mean, Daniela, as you're sitting there saying, it can be very simple. I'm imagining that simple salad, but with that salt with the flowers in it. So for those listening and tuning in today that are not familiar, although you might have met her before through some of the other podcasts and videos that we've done, Daniela has a brand that makes salad dressing and some beautiful salts. And we'll add a link to it so you can also see it, but it's called Farmhouse Lab. And so as you're making these simple things, we also know in the back, I'm imagining, she's drizzling some of this on there to add a little sparkle.
That's right.
Am I right?
Thanks, Justine. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and just in addition to that and everything that Shirin said, the act of eating together and the sharing of the food, I think that is also something that I grew up with, that I definitely want to transfer to the generation of my children and their children.
So thank you, Daniela, for that. I wanted to circle back in a conversation that I had with Shirin that I thought was super interesting. So when we were talking about the podcast upcoming, and she was talking about how her son came to her, and Shirin, chime in if I'm misquoting or misstating, that her son was like, it's going to end with you, Mom, all these recipes, all these ways of doing things and integrating our culture, into our lives, because you make it, you know how to do it. And Shirin, I think, said, and I hate to quote because I butcher words all the time, but the essence of it was, but honey, you're in the kitchen with me all the time. We cook together. You see what we're doing, And I think the idea is it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be your version of it and what you get from your family. And that's what we bring to the next generation and their version of it.
Right. And so I do now have a son who's just finished first year in college, just to put perspective for the listeners. And I have a daughter who's a rising junior in high school. So I'm dealing with teenagers who all their life grew up in a household where the center of our conversation was always around food. And a culture where their grandparents were around, celebration, togetherness. And I'll just walk you back a little bit, just so, because why Cameron made that, and it kind of felt like kind of sad about it, was because we emphasize food and music celebrations so much that he almost has this sadness. Is it going to end with us? These kids have it. It's like, well, we're always singing and playing, music in the background, and grandma's walking in with food. We all share it. And I'll walk you through this part. I grew up in a house during the war that my dad, bless his soul, and I could literally cry a bucket now because I reflect back to what he always said to me. You crack that one egg, but your door is always open to share that one egg. Because it wasn't, and literally I'm crying thinking about it. And I don't know how that made me think of that moment. And I carry that in my heart. And I really hope my Cameron carries that in his heart, seeing how much I share and the community building that I do through the work that I do is actually through food. And there's a lot of times when we came to this neighborhood, I would take leftover food to my neighbors, and a few neighbors were like, why are you at my door? And I'm like, that's how I grew up. We share food. So back to your question about Cameron, and it ends with us. I said, no, because I am modeling, and my parents modeled. And I hope that you understand that it's beyond food. It's about love. It's about connection. It's about passing that wisdom, and then you make it yours. And to go back to this part, how is this going to go? I'm actually working on a sustainability cookbook, my version, and with recipes and tips that are going to be passed down through the generations. And I think that's my way of saying, okay, at least my kids and grandkids are going to remember their grandma in a way that is beautiful.
But I think what's amazing about that is that he's so interested in maintaining that and integrating that as he develops his own life, right? Because everybody comes, is born and grows up in different experiences.
I mean, that's what it's all about. So
Yeah.
when that open door policy and what the spread, in Farsi we call it sofre, that sofre or spread is, you connect to hearts through that. When you bring a diverse group of people around the table, it's a feeling of love, connection, and community.
You do a lot with food and community, and your family is not necessarily local.
Yeah,
So I'm wondering what that looks like for you.
You both said things that really rang true to me as well. It's like my husband and I were both from Germany, so all of our family is in Germany. We don't have them around, but we have our chosen family around us, and we have the same open door policy, and we always share our food, and we cook together with our friends. And our kids grew up with this. So while it does not always look the same as where the grandmother and the grandfather and the grandchildren and everybody sits at a table, like some of us grew up, luckily, you can have that in different forms. So that is one thing I couldn't agree more. And then I just wanted to elaborate on what Shirin already said. True holistic nourishing is not just nourishing of the body, it's the nourishment of the soul and the mind. And I have a background in Ayurveda because I find this so fascinating. And there's like 10 rules that you should follow with eating. And one is you serve someone before you serve yourself.
So Shirin, I'm really curious. Kids have the attention span of what, a gnat when they're young, right? I mean, even me as an adult, I don't always have the greatest attention span. But equally, my point is, the values that you're trying to incorporate. Do you necessarily need to verbalize that, or is that something that's part of your action that is understood?
I think both.
Okay.
I think, like you said, if it's a ritual, if it becomes something that it's your family ritual or value, and you do it over and over, it's just something we just do it without even saying it. There are times I'm like, who wants to set the table? Who wants to clean up? Who wants to just kind of having this be a ritual rather than, and also like, it's not something you have to do. It's more something you would want to do because you care about your family.
So how are you going to, with your children as they grow up and they're still at home during the summer, thread that into your lives?
I think it's free flow during the day, but again, dinner is always something that's happening. And that could be in the summer, oftentimes we meet with friends on a Tuesday evening, if the weather is nice, not only on the weekends. And just the other day, like a bunch of my daughter's friends were here and we were cooking together and making it a thing. So there's definitely less ritual, daily routine in it. But I would say there's always dinner.
Shirin, you have your son and your daughter both home this summer?
Thankfully, yes, only because our time with them has become more precious since Cameron's now in college. So again, in our household with older kids and teens, they're working, they're doing internships. So the day is actually up to them now. I'm lucky if I catch them with breakfast and we share breakfast, but like Daniela said, it is a more unstructured, like, last night was a Tuesday. We did family dinner with another family, and it was super fun. But yes, there's always dinner. So even if I'm not going to be home, I make an effort to ask, like, would you like me to cook something for you guys, or you want to create or make dinner yourselves? They're old enough now. They make wise choices.
So Shirin, as you were talking and you were saying that your kids go to the store, what is their what's their education on how to choose a product? What are they pulling from? What's that conversation like in your house?
I think by now they just know to look for organic food, or they look at labels. They, again, it depends. Our household is gluten free, so they look for gluten free crackers. So they just know after following me around the supermarket for so long. For example, honey. I care about honey being a local honey. Because local honey for me, and being in a household we have allergy issues, I care about local honey because of the health benefits. Again, my kids know to look at how to read labels, how to look at ingredients and its benefits. And then don't forget, they still love their fun food aisle. Those kids are running around and they still want their specific let's say chips and cheese puffs. But now I tell them, look at the ingredients in cheese puffs. What company is it? Because they are companies we won't name that has carcinogenic ingredients versus, same flavor as a cheese puff, but it's naturally made. So yes,
Right.
they're aware of reading labels to make sure that it's not harmful, and they're making good choices.
So Daniela, I'm curious. For you, you're also always eating I've seen those salads you've made. They're gorgeous. In fact, I've had one at my house. And that beet hummus, I've never had a more beautiful hummus in my life. So does that translate to your kids? And if your kids are going out to the store, what are some of the tools or the questions that you've posed to them that they should consider when looking to buy the right items?
So of course it translated, but for them, I'm like the health nut in the house, of course. So they're making fun of me for, of course,
That's their job, Daniela. That's their
make it
job.
local and just the vegetables. But I know it translated. Both my kids love to cook. My son is 17. He's actually really, really good. And I stopped eating when I was meat when I was 16, and I just don't like it. Maybe because of that, but also because he loves to eat meat, he became so good in preparing meats. I am not the only person who influences him, right?
Mm-hmm.
They get information from so many sources, thankfully. Friends, family members, their travels, also social media. There's not everything is bad about social media. They came up with some great recipe ideas, actually. Because I am doing a lot on this end and they're taking part in what I do for my work, they already know a lot, but I do always emphasize independence and freedom. So if my son says he's going to go source his meat, I let him.
So in the conversations with your family and your children and your friends and just life, what role does regenerative play for you guys as you choose your food, as you tend to your gardens, if you have one? And how much conversation is around regenerative with your friends, your family, and your children? Is that integral to living a sustainable life?
Well, very much so. I do know a lot about it because of the work that I do. Regenerative agriculture is what I focus on when I source my suppliers, my sources for the ingredients of the product that I make. And yes, we do have a vegetable garden in our backyard, and the kids have been tending to it and working with me since they're little. And I also think like every summer we go back to Europe, and not just Germany. If we can, we like to travel to other countries like Italy, Spain, Greece. Whenever we have an opportunity, we stop at a local farmer. We learn from them. We participate in activities around that, and we make it a fun cultural experience.
So to go to you, Shirin, I want to bring you into the fold in here. What role does regenerative play for you in your house as it relates to the food that you bring into it, that you encourage your children to eat, and the conversations you have?
Similar to Daniela, we have a small garden, and we always had each kid have a pot that belonged to them, and they plant their own stuff. And just to be honest, that's more of a respect for nature. But the regenerative part of it, as much as I would love for it to hopeful in the world, but the population, as much as it's growing, sadly, like Daniela said, to feed the number of people, and depending on the country, that's why GMO is playing a big role. That's why they're just worried about feeding people. Cameron, as when he was little, he would say, "Can we come up with a pill that ends hunger?" And it's interesting. I always think of him when he was little, because my kids went to school that they had access to that, but not everybody does. They grew up in a school where there were multiple gardens, and they went and did gardening. They were taught since they were little kids that you respect earth and the earth will feed you.
I just kind of wanted to come full circle, right? And go back to where we were originally, talking about, living a sustainable life, the role that food plays in it for us, and what are the non-negotiables for you, Daniela, when you think about that and when you raise your family?
My non-negotiables are that we always have a connection to our food. I do want to know where the food is coming from. I do want to know how it has grown and how it nourishes us. I do want to enjoy food as an experience, ideally with family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I always will be able to share food, to give the gift of love to others. And I don't want to ever miss enjoying making food. As I mentioned earlier, I'd rather skip that one day if I'm too stressed out or too worked up, and then come back to it the next day.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. How about you, Shirin?
It's again, that goes back to my dad and the one egg, cracking egg, being able to share enough that I'm able to share, even as little or as however much, because sharing is caring. And always bridging the culture with the food. For me, that's really important. It's non-negotiable in terms that I take pride in my culture and the roots, and the roots, it's about connectivity. And I want this to be something that gets carried down and passes down.
Awesome, ladies. So for those of you that want to hear more from Daniela about her food and what she has, we're going to throw it in the show notes, but Farmhouse Lab is where it's at. So Daniela, what's the best way to find a little bit more about you and even check out what some of those things are that you have at Farmhouse Lab?
I think the easiest, if you have an Instagram account, is to browse my feed. I literally post everything that I make in my kitchen or wherever I am. And that gives you a good overview of ideas of my products, what they are, what to do with it, and hopefully a lot of inspiration of what to do in your own kitchen.
Awesome. And Shirin has this amazing platform that she is the ultimate connector, connecting people through food. So for those folks that want to learn more about you, Shirin, and how to either participate or just get educated on your platform, what would be the best way to go about doing that?
For now, it's similar to Daniela. I have a platform called Illuminate Her Path. It's all about community building and shining the light on women doers like you, amazing woman today. And it's all about everything that benefits women and about wellness and just being present. So I hope you guys can follow us on that and help one another to build a gender balanced community.
Awesome, ladies. Thank you so much for your time, for your commitment, and the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justine.
And for those that are tuning in for the first time, whether you're watching the video cast or you're listening to the podcast, don't forget our channel on YouTube is essential.ingredients. And you can download us on podcasts wherever you do listen at Essential Ingredients with Justine. And, if you just want to follow me, see what I'm up to and see what things are coming down the pipeline on Instagram, while our Instagram is at essential.ingredients, mine is at justine.reichman. So I hope to hear from you guys soon.